It's 2 a.m. The house is completely silent. You have the baby monitor on your nightstand, volume all the way up, because that's what you do now. That's who you are now. A parent who sleeps with one ear permanently open. And then, silence. Not the normal soft sounds of your baby breathing, not the little snuffles and sighs you've memorized over the past weeks. Silence, your eyes open instantly, you grab the monitor, you stare at it. Your brain does the calculation in less than 1 second. No sound means no breathing, means something is wrong. Your feet hit the floor before you've even made a conscious decision to move. You get to the crib, your baby is there, eyes closed, not moving, not making a sound, and then a tiny gasp, a small, sharp inhale, and your baby breathes again. Your legs nearly give out, your heart is hammering, your hands are shaking. You are standing over your sleeping baby at 2 a.m. trying to remember how to breathe yourself. And you have one question screaming inside your head: what just happened to my child? Here is what happened. Your baby's brain just did something extraordinary, something so precise, so deliberate, so neurologically sophisticated that the researchers who study it describe it as one of the most elegant developmental processes in all of human biology. And in the next 12 minutes, I am going to show you exactly what it is, why it happens, what the science actually says, and why the 911 call you almost made tonight, while completely understandable, was not necessary. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will never experience that 2 a.m. panic the same way again. Section 1, you are not alone. Before we get into the science, I want to tell you something important. What you just experienced, that 2 a.m. terror of watching your baby stop breathing, is one of the most common parenting experiences in the United States. In 2025, Google released its annual Year in Search report, and among the top baby-related search queries in the entire country, not hundreds of searches, not thousands, but millions of searches, was this exact phrase: why does my baby randomly gasp for air while sleeping? Number 2. Out of every baby question Googled in America in 2025. Number 2. That means right now, tonight, as you are watching this video, there are millions of other parents sitting in the dark beside cribs, hands still shaking, typing those same words into their phones. And here's what most of them find when they search. They find articles about sleep apnea. They find lists of warning signs. They find instructions on when to call a doctor. They find just enough information to double their fear and not nearly enough to actually understand what is happening. What they do not find, what almost no parenting content on the internet actually explains, is the neuroscience, the real reason, the biological mechanism, the extraordinary developmental story that is happening inside your baby's brain during those silent seconds. That is what we are here for today. Because you deserve more than a list of symptoms. You deserve the actual science. And the actual science, I promise you, is going to change the way you see those 2 a.m. moments forever. Section 2, meet periodic breathing. The phenomenon you witnessed has a name. Pediatric researchers and neonatologists call it periodic breathing, and the definition is precise. Periodic breathing is a normal pattern of breathing in newborns and young infants, characterized by cycles of regular breathing, followed by brief pauses, typically lasting between 5 and 10 seconds, followed by a return to normal breathing, sometimes with a slightly deeper or sharper breath. 5 to 10 seconds, that is what you witnessed. That is what sent you flying across the bedroom floor at 2 a.m. 5 to 10 seconds of silence that felt like an eternity. Now here is the first thing the American Academy of Pediatrics wants every parent to know about periodic breathing. It is normal. Not possibly normal, not normal in some cases, normal. It is classified as a normal breathing pattern in healthy newborns and young infants. It is documented in the medical literature going back decades. It is taught in every pediatric nursing and medical school program in the country as a standard feature of early infant physiology. The American Academy of Pediatrics estimates that periodic breathing occurs in the vast majority of healthy full-term newborns at some point during their first weeks and months of life. In premature infants, the percentage is even higher, because the system responsible for regulating breathing is even less mature at birth. This is not a rare phenomenon. This is not a dangerous anomaly. This is one of the most common things a healthy newborn does during sleep. And yet, because nobody explains it, millions of parents experience it as one of the most terrifying moments of their lives. That ends today. Section 3, the brainstem story. To truly understand periodic breathing, you need to understand something about the brainstem. The brainstem is the most ancient part of the human brain. It sits at the base of the brain, connecting the cerebral cortex above to the spinal cord below, and it controls the functions that keep you alive without any conscious effort: heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature, and most importantly for our story today, breathing. Deep within the brainstem is a cluster of neurons called the respiratory control center. This is the part of the brain that sends the rhythmic signals to your diaphragm and chest muscles, telling them to contract, to expand, to inhale, to exhale. Every single breath you take for your entire life is initiated by this tiny cluster of neurons in your brainstem. Now here is what most parents never learn. When your baby was inside the womb, they did not need this system to work. For 9 months, your baby's oxygen came directly from you, through the placenta, through the umbilical cord, delivered continuously, automatically, without any effort from the baby's respiratory system whatsoever. The brainstem respiratory control center existed. It was developing, but it had never been truly tested. It had never been required to work on its own in real time for sustained periods, without backup. And then your baby was born, and suddenly, within the first breath, within the first cry, this system was fully online and fully responsible for every single molecule of oxygen that reached your baby's brain, for the first time, ever. Think about what that means. Think about the magnitude of that transition. In one moment, a system that had never operated independently was suddenly the sole mechanism keeping a human being alive. And now, in the weeks and months after birth, that system is doing something remarkable. It is learning. Section 4, the CO2 calibration system. Here is where the science becomes genuinely extraordinary. Your breathing is not controlled by how much oxygen is in your blood. Most people assume it is. They assume that when oxygen levels drop, your brain sends a signal to breathe. But that is not how the human respiratory system primarily works. Your breathing is controlled by carbon dioxide. Deep in the brainstem, there are specialized neurons called central chemoreceptors. Their entire job, just their only job, is to monitor the level of carbon dioxide in the blood and the cerebrospinal fluid that bathes the brain. When CO2 rises above a certain threshold, these chemoreceptors fire a signal to the respiratory control center, which sends the signal to your diaphragm, which causes you to inhale. This is the fundamental mechanism of human breathing. Carbon dioxide rises, chemoreceptors detect it, you breathe. Now here is the key to everything. In a newborn baby, this system, this CO2 detection threshold, is not yet calibrated. The chemoreceptors exist, they are functional. But the precise sensitivity setting, the exact level of CO2 that triggers the breathing signal, is still being tuned, still being adjusted, still being perfected through real-world use. Research published in the Journal of Pediatrics and supported by multiple NIH-funded studies describes this calibration process in detail. The newborn brainstem chemoreceptors require weeks to months of real-world breathing experience to establish the precise CO2 threshold that will govern breathing for the rest of that person's life. And during this calibration period, during those weeks when the system is still finding its setting, something predictable happens. Occasionally, the CO2 threshold is set slightly too high, slightly too insensitive. And for a brief window of 5 to 10 seconds, the signal to breathe is delayed. The baby's breathing pauses, CO2 continues to rise, it reaches the threshold, the chemoreceptors fire, the signal reaches the diaphragm, the baby inhales, sometimes with a slightly deeper breath than usual, because the CO2 has been building for a few extra seconds. That sharper, deeper inhale, that small gasp you heard, is not distress. It is the system working, the system correcting, the system doing exactly what it was designed to do. The gasp is not the problem. The gasp is the solution. Section 5, periodic breathing versus real apnea. Now, and this section is critically important, I want to give you the complete picture, because good science never ignores the nuance, and there is a real distinction that every parent needs to understand. Periodic breathing is normal, but there is a different condition, called apnea of infancy, that is not the same thing and does require medical attention. Here is how you tell them apart. Periodic breathing, the normal developmental phenomenon we have been discussing, has specific characteristics. The pause lasts 5 to 10 seconds. The baby's skin color remains normal throughout, pink lips, pink face. The baby does not change color. There is no stiffening of the body, no limpness. The baby resumes breathing on their own without any stimulation, and the baby appears completely normal and comfortable before and after the episode. Apnea of infancy, the condition that does require medical evaluation, looks different. The pause lasts longer than 15 to 20 seconds. Or the pause is shorter but accompanied by a change in the baby's color, blueness around the lips, pallor, or a grayish cast to the skin. Or the baby becomes limp or stiff during the episode. Or the baby does not resume breathing on their own and requires stimulation to restart. Stanford Children's Health describes this distinction clearly. Brief pauses with no color change and self-resolution are the signature of normal periodic breathing. Color change, prolonged pauses, or failure to self-resume are the signals that warrant immediate medical attention. In the vast majority of cases, when parents describe watching their baby stop breathing briefly and then gasp and continue normally, what they witnessed was periodic breathing, normal, developmental, self-resolving, but I want you to have both sides of this picture completely clearly in your mind. Because the goal is not to replace panic with dismissiveness, the goal is to replace panic with knowledge, precise, accurate, nuanced knowledge that helps you respond appropriately to what you are actually seeing. Section 6, what parents should actually do. So what do you do when this happens? First, observe before you react. When you hear silence on the monitor or reach the crib and see no breathing movement, begin counting. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3. You are gathering information, not standing frozen in panic. If the baby resumes breathing within 10 seconds with no color change, that is periodic breathing. You have just witnessed the brainstem calibration system doing its job. Second, check color, not movement. The most important thing to assess in those seconds is not whether the baby is moving, but whether the baby's lips and face remain pink. Pink color means oxygenated blood is still circulating. Pink color during a brief pause is the most reassuring sign you can observe. Third, do not stimulate unnecessarily. Many parents instinctively reach in and jostle the baby the moment they see a pause. In a case of true periodic breathing, this interrupts the natural CO2 calibration cycle. If the baby is going to self-resume within seconds, and in periodic breathing they will, your intervention is not helping the system learn. It is interrupting it. Fourth, know the real warning signs. Color change to blue, gray, or white around the lips. Pause lasting longer than 15 to 20 seconds. Limpness or stiffness of the body. Failure to resume breathing without physical stimulation. These are the signs that change the situation entirely. These are the signs that warrant the 911 call. Not a 5-second silence followed by a small gasp and a pink-lipped sleeping baby. Fifth, discuss it calmly with your pediatrician at the next scheduled visit. Not in the middle of the night in a panic, but at the next visit. Describe what you observed. Your pediatrician can confirm whether what you witnessed fits the profile of normal periodic breathing and give you personalized guidance based on your baby's specific history and gestational age. Here is what I want you to carry with you from this video. Inside your sleeping baby's brainstem, right now, tonight, a remarkable piece of biological engineering is at work. A cluster of neurons that never had to work independently during 9 months of womb life is now online, fully operational, and actively teaching itself to regulate one of the most complex physiological systems in the human body. It is calibrating its carbon dioxide sensitivity with a precision that no medical device can replicate. It is building the respiratory control architecture that will govern your child's every breath for the next 80 or 90 years of their life. And sometimes, during that calibration process, it pauses for 5 seconds, and then corrects and breathes again. When you hear that silence on the monitor at 2 a.m., and then that small gasp, and then the soft rhythm of breathing returning, you are not hearing a system failing. You are hearing a system building itself. You are hearing one of the most sophisticated developmental processes in all of human biology happening in real time in the dark, in the crib beside your bed. That is not a reason to panic. That is a reason to be in complete awe of what your baby's brain is doing while you sleep. If this video gave you peace tonight, if it replaced even a fraction of that 2 a.m. terror with understanding, please share it with one parent who needs it. Because somewhere right now, another parent is standing over a crib with shaking hands and they need to hear exactly what you just heard. Subscribe to Parenting IQ. Every week, we take the science that lives in research papers and pediatric textbooks, and we bring it to the people who need it most, you.